As you know, does not have a constitutional separation between church and state. The Church of England is an integral part of the governance of Britain. The Queen is the head of the Church of England. There are 26 bishops who sit in Parliament as of right, because they are bishops. You'd have to go as far as Saudi Arabia, I think, to find another place, or Iran, to find another place where clerics automatically sit in Parliament because they are clerics. In Britain, we have a census every 10 years, and in the 2001 census, 72% of the population ticked the box labelled Christian. That fact has been used in the 10 years since then by politicians and by prelates and preachers and bishops to justify Christian policies in Britain. Britain is a Christian country. 72% tick the Christian box in the census. So when the 2011 census came along, we suspected that the same thing would happen, tried to run a campaign to have the religion question removed from the census, but it wasn't. So we fell back on Plan B, which was to commission an opinion poll by Ipsos Mori, which is a very respected and respectable polling organization, to question those people who ticked the Christian box in the very week after the 2011 census to find out what they really believe. And this is what I'm encouraging you to do in this country. When you meet somebody who says they're Catholic or Muslim, whatever it is, ask them what they really believe. We asked the people who tick the Christian box in the census what they really believe. The first interesting fact is that that figure of 72% seems to have dropped in the 10 years since 2001 to 54%. But that was only the first step in our investigation. We wanted to then take that 54%, the people who tick the Christian box, and ask supplementary questions to say, what does it mean to be Christian? Are you really Christian? Do you go to church? Do you read the Bible? Do you believe Jesus is the Son of God? Why did you tick the Christian box? And the 54% then drops dramatically to a much smaller percentage when you measure any of those indices of whether these people really are Christian. Perhaps the most amusing of those results is when we ask them, what is the first book of the New Testament? And they didn't even have to remember that it was Matthew. All they had to do was choose a multiple choice of 4. We gave them Matthew, Genesis, Acts of the Apostles, and Psalms. Only 35%, not of the British people, only 35% of the 54 who ticked the Christian box could identify Matthew as the first book of the New Testament. Now, of course, it's not important what's the first book of the New Testament, but it does at least suggest a certain disconnect from the Christian culture which they postulate. And the same goes for the answers to all the various other questions that we asked. We specifically asked them, why did you tick the Christian box? And we offered them things like, because I believe Jesus is my Lord and Savior, because I believe in the teachings of Jesus, and so on. But the most popular answer to that question was, oh, well, I like to think of myself as a good person. That's a reason for ticking the Christian box. So that if politicians want to say 54%, it's only 54 now, 54% of the British people are Christian, the majority of people who tick the Christian box did so thinking that because they try to be a good person, that means they ought to tick the Christian box. But it gets worse, or better, depending which way you look at it. We also asked them, when you are faced with a moral dilemma, when you're faced with a question of right and wrong, to what do you turn? Do you turn to your religion in order to decide the answer to a moral dilemma? Only 10% of the 54% said they turned to their religion when faced with a moral dilemma. The most popular answer to that question is one that I think many of us might share. They turn to their innate moral sense of what is right and wrong. And the next most popular answer was, I turn to advice from friends and relations. So after our opinion poll, it will no longer be possible for politicians in Britain to claim that Britain is a Christian country and therefore to promote Christian policies and Christian values. Now, we've been accused of trying to dictate to people who want to call themselves Christian whether they should be allowed to call themselves Christian. That's not the point. They can call themselves whatever they like. The point is that they should not be hijacked by bishops, by prelates, by politicians who want to use their numbers as evidence that Britain is a Christian country and therefore that Christian policies on, for example, abortion, the right to die, and that kind of stem cell research and things like that should be, they should not be allowed to hijack the percentage figure that comes out of the census. Well, that was Britain. And I want to leave you with the thought that the same is probably true of this country as well. And do not let the Christians, the Muslims, the religious people of whatever stamp hijack the great majority, as I believe it to be, of people in this country who may vaguely say they're Christian because they were baptized or whatever it might be, or because they like to think of themselves as a good person. We mustn't let them hijack those people, and perhaps one of the ways to make sure that doesn't happen is to don't accept what somebody tells you when they say they're Christian. Ask the supplementary question. You mean you believe Jesus is your Lord and Savior? Oh, well, no, I didn't really mean that. I just meant I like to be a good person, or I was baptized, or something like that. I suspect that there's an enormous number of people who are sort of advertised on the surface as though they were Christian, but actually are not. And above all, I suspect that may apply, in fact, I'm absolutely sure it applies to your elected representatives. There are 535 members of the United States Congress. It is statistically inconceivable that 534 of them are devout religious believers. Congressman Pete Stark is not alone. It's statistically almost obvious that there must be probably hundreds like him who don't dare come out and say so. They are lying to their constituents because they believe, they've been led to believe, that it's necessary to lie about their innermost convictions in order to get elected. And so I would encourage people to challenge that, to challenge your congressperson, your senators, and say, do you really believe what you pretend to believe? Or are you possibly misled into thinking that you have to do that in order to win votes? So probably what we need to do, what you need to do, I'm not a citizen of this country, what you need to do is to work on getting the message across to politicians and everybody else that we, the people who sit in this room, are far, far more numerous than anybody realizes. You are a constituency, a voting constituency, a lobbying constituency, far more powerful than many people in this country believe, and maybe more powerful than even you believe. Thank you very much.
Dr. Richard Dawkins.